Keaton Mitchell is officially done for the remainder of the 2023 NFL season after suffering a knee injury in Week 15 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. We talk about just how devastating of a loss it is for the Ravens and how the team can replace him. All that and more coming up next year on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens your first listen each and every day. We are free and available on all podcasting platforms. That includes over in video form on YouTube and audio form wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We're back here. It is Taco Tuesday on Locked On Ravens. We bring you Ravens content 5 days per week, plus more. We do live streams after every single Ravens game and after every big piece of Ravens news. So we got the instant reaction episode in at midnight on Monday, so that was a good one. Also had our 6 a.m. show. Had some technical difficulties, so we put out our shows right around 6 a.m. Eastern time here. Analysis, news, updates with the Ravens, obviously, and it's an exciting season for them, so be sure you're locked in here on Locked On Ravens, audio form, video form. You're not missing out either way, so if you want to watch one day, listen another, subscribe both places, and you can decide how you want to watch or listen. Tell a friend, tell a family member if you're an everydayer. I appreciate you listening to me each and every day. If it's your first time in, welcome into the show. Welcome to the channel. If you're somewhere in the middle, welcome back. Let's talk Ravens, though. The Ravens pick up a big win. They clinched the playoffs with their Week 15 win over the Jacksonville Jaguars. But there's another story that kind of loomed large and honestly took the wind out of some people's sails, and that was the Keaton Mitchell injury, the bright young running back for the Ravens, who is going to be done now. John Harbaugh confirming the news. It's going to be a serious knee injury for him, and the reports coming out from the outlets, the media outlets, is that it's a torn ACL. But John Harbaugh did provide some positive context. We'll get into what that positive context is, and we'll talk about what the usual timelines are for the ACL injuries. And we'll also talk about for the Ravens how they're going to replace Keaton Mitchell, because now they have to go. They lose a dynamic, explosive part of their offense. How are they going to do that? We'll also get into Ravens and Jaguars general takeaways in the second part of the show and talk about some of that Lamar Jackson magic in the final part. Also a little MVP conversation, which we talked a little bit about yesterday. So if you want some MVP conversation more in depth, check out yesterday's show. Let's talk Ravens. Let's talk Keaton Mitchell, though. Big loss for him. Definitely devastating. I'm not going to try to sit here and sugarcoat it. Keaton Mitchell became a huge part of what Baltimore did on the offensive side of the ball, and I think was really settling into what you would call the running back one role, and was just a great compliment. Even if it wasn't the running back one role, he and Gus Edwards were able to complement each other well. But the thing that I loved about having Lamar Jackson and Keaton Mitchell in the same backfield is the fact that it's like, how do you defend that as a defense? Because with Keaton Mitchell and his speed on RPOs, on read options, even just handoffs, you want to go play action there, you have to account for both guys, and you have to put manpower into stopping both, even though one is going to have the ball. So I kind of described it a bit yesterday, but with Mitchell on a read option, let's say, if Jackson takes that ball, a lot of people have to run with Mitchell. And I think we saw that. I think on Sunday night, we saw it where Jacksonville was running with Keaton Mitchell a lot to try to take that element out. But then the spy on Lamar wouldn't get there, and Lamar would just kind of boot it outside and go right in between where the tight end and the slot receiver is, that kind of gap there on the right side. We've seen him do that, and he'll pick up 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, however many yards there. It's a big chunk play. And plus the dynamic ability of Mitchell, something we've talked about here on this show. And again, if you're an everyday, if you listen to me back during the draft, I think a lot of people mislabeled Keaton Mitchell as a guy who's just a fast guy. And I've talked about this many, many times. I'm sure the everydayers are sick of me talking about it. But Mitchell's much more than just a speed guy who can only get to the outside and he goes down on first contact. Mitchell was really good after contact. A lot of his yards came after contact, and he was running between the tackles really hard and really well. Plus, with the speed, he just outruns guys. I mean, that one play, who was it? Was it Cleveland? No, it wasn't Cleveland. They barely used them against Cleveland. It was some team a couple weeks ago. On that long touchdown he had, he just outran like 4 guys and made it to the end zone. Like, that's just what he does. He is that speed element player. And to be frank, the Ravens do not have another running back with that speed. They have the elusivity of Lamar Jackson and Zay Flowers and the shiftiness of those guys. But as a running back, it just made the Ravens offense so much harder to defend. And then you get the change of pace with the Gus Edwards bruiser in there. Obviously, when you talk about replacing Keaton Mitchell, the closest thing to what they have is Justice Hill. And to be fair to Justice Hill, I thought that he had played relatively well this season. I thought he played really well last season, earned the contract, and started to really play well this past year before Mitchell kind of took over everything, if we're being honest. But there were the fumbling issues and the mesh point issues with Lamar Jackson that he had, and I think that maybe soured him to a couple of people. But he runs hard. He is underratedly physical and has electricity and speed and the juke ability and all that. But he's not Keaton Mitchell fast, right? I don't think anybody's Keaton Mitchell fast, and that's what they're losing with him. And I just think that teams were starting to respect, opposing defenses were starting to respect Keaton Mitchell, and that's why we started to see the manpower go over to him. And I'm going to put this stat out today. I'm recording this, obviously, before 6 a.m. on Tuesday, but I'm going to put it out. In terms of Keaton Mitchell and just diving into how good he is, or I guess was this season, he finishes his year 47 rushes, 396 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Also, on top of that, 9 receptions for 93 yards. So ends the year with 10.3 yards per reception and 8.4 yards per attempt. With players with above 45 attempts, Keaton Mitchell ranked 2nd in the league in yards per attempt. Only Devon Achane from the Dolphins, who the Ravens will see in Week 17, had more. 8.5 for Achane, 8.4 for Keaton Mitchell. If you want to take that a step further, you want to talk about yards per touch, Antonio Gibson was the only running back not named Keaton Mitchell to have more yards per touch than Keaton Mitchell this season, with a minimum of at least 50 touches. Keaton Mitchell, he averaged 8.73 yards per touch. Antonio Gibson, 9.67. We have to remember the role, right? Antonio Gibson, if we're talking about what he's actually done, Antonio Gibson is only averaging 4.2 yards per carry. His bread and butter comes in the receiving yard category, where he's caught 42 passes. Keaton Mitchell obviously has only caught 9. So in the grand scheme of things, 8.1 yards per reception for Antonio Gibson, 4.2 yards per carry for Antonio Gibson, compared to 10.3 and 8.4 for Keaton Mitchell. I think Keaton Mitchell's season a little more impressive there. Achane comes in 3rd with running backs and yards per touch with 8.26. And if you want to take it even further, Lamar Jackson is up there with Keaton Mitchell too. It was almost like, remember J.K. Dobbins, his rookie season? It was Lamar and J.K. Dobbins. And J.K. Dobbins, he was the 3rd leading rusher in the league in terms of net yards per attempt, or just yards per attempt in general. He averaged 6 yards per carry as a rookie. It was best among all running backs that year. But only 2 players in the league had more yards per attempt, and that was Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray. Well, the Lamar Jackson, Keaton Mitchell, both of those guys rank in the top of the league in yards per attempt and a bunch of other categories. So they're losing that, and it's a devastating loss. He also, I think, was able to take some of the load off of the tackles like Ronnie Stanley and Morgan Moses. Stanley allowed, I think, another 6 or 7 pressures against the Jaguars. He's not right. He's not healthy. He has not been good this season. They're going to have to rotate. I would be, if we're talking an on-field perspective, the right move is to probably just let him get healthy and not play him. But that's essentially benching him, and I just don't know if the Ravens are going to do that. Is it the right call at this point? I mean, look, you're trying to win a Super Bowl. You got to do what's right. Having an 100+ or I guess 90, very high $90+ million tackle on the bench, it's a tough pill to swallow. But if you're trying to win a Super Bowl, it's really weird and really hard to admit. But I think it's the easy choice, where when you look at the tape, you look at the stats and you look at the numbers, Ronnie Stanley is just not playing well this season. And I think Keaton Mitchell alleviated some of that because he was able to get out so fast. And now I think it puts a little more pressure on them too. So devastating loss for the Ravens. Again, does not end their Super Bowl chances. Don't want to go too crazy, right? Without Keaton Mitchell, the Ravens still can win the Super Bowl. It's 100% possible, but they're just going to have to get creative, much like we kind of talked about with Mark Andrews and that loss. The Ravens have had to get creative. Guys have stepped up, right? Isaiah Likely stepped up. Charlie Kohler's made a couple of big receptions. So Same vein here with Keaton Mitchell. Can Justice Hill step up? They're going to call up Melvin Gordon. What can he do? Gus Edwards, can he continue to roll along here, maybe pick up a couple extra yards? We will see. But again, not trying to sugarcoat it. Keaton Mitchell, a tough loss. And just it's tough for him. I feel bad for him. Worked so hard to get to this point. Undrafted, a lot of success, bet on himself. Comes back from the injury early in the season and gets injured again, I think, but then comes back and again, had a huge role. Plus, this probably puts him out for at least some of 2024. John Harbaugh did say in terms of the actual cartilage stuff, there wasn't anything there. So that's good news. But I would not expect this. We're in the middle of December right now, leaning towards later parts of December. I would expect him to miss some of 2024, if not, maybe half for most of the season, which is tough. And we got to talk about JK too. What's his role going to be? And when's he going to come back? We will see if he even comes back. Obviously, this year is the contract year for him. Coming up in the second part of the show, though, we'll talk more about the Ravens and Jaguars game in general, talking about some overall takeaways. So be sure to stay tuned. Plenty to talk about on the show. First, this episode is brought to you by Gametime. And there have been a bunch of times where I've had frustrating ticket buying experiences. Sometimes the seats weren't good. I couldn't find last minute tickets, and there were just no good deals in general anyway. But you shouldn't have to worry about all that when you're buying tickets to your next big event, because Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. And with killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. And on the Gametime app, again, we got a couple of big events coming up in the Baltimore area here, if that's where you're located. Obviously, the Ravens will travel to San Francisco on Christmas night to play there some Monday Night Football. But then the Ravens round out their year at 2 home games, the Dolphins in Week 17 on New Year's Eve and the Steelers in Week 18, 2 big ones. So be sure to check out the Gametime app there. They have last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, plus views from all of the seats in the venue. Gametime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. They have all-in prices that show you the total up front, so now you're getting a great deal without hitting fees. Plus, they're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. The Gametime guarantee, it means you'll always have the best price, and if you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of that difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL, spelled LOCKED1NFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guarantee. We're back, our second segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher talking with you here as we now dive into the Ravens and Jaguars Week 15 game. Baltimore takes it from Jacksonville 23-7. It was a big win for the Ravens in terms of some of the standings. We talked about the New York Times playoff simulator, or at least the postseason simulator the New York Times has going on. Those odds have obviously shot up. Baltimore, they clinched the playoff berth with the win, so obviously they have a 100% chance to make it. But now they have a 96% chance to win the AFC North. They have a 74% chance to have a round 1 bye and a 21% chance of that Super Bowl as well. So really exciting stuff for the Ravens right now. Again, it'd be such a collapse if they were to lose the division round. I know the Browns are hot on their tail, but the Ravens, they control their own destiny. Even if they lose this game to San Francisco, if they beat Miami, they beat Pittsburgh, they're in a really, really good spot, and that would obviously win them the division there anyway. But with this Jaguars game, I think we learned a couple of things about the Ravens, and obviously instant reactions compared to day after takeaways, 2 days after takeaways. It can be different. Overall, though, Lamar Jackson, we talked about it, 14-24, 171, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The box score doesn't jump out at you, but I will tell you that from what I saw from Lamar on Sunday, the patience we saw him play with, the poise we saw him play with, and it's been really, for the most part, all season. But he's just so calculated in what he does now, where I'm not saying he wasn't before, but I think he's taken it to another level this season where the games continue to slow down for him. And when there's a free rush, I mean, the one throw, I think it was Rayshon Jenkins who kind of busted up the middle free. They had a free rush for the Jaguars that they came right up the middle. Lamar Jackson obviously IDs the free rusher and knows he's going to get hit hard, and just stands in the pocket and delivers a strike to Odell. One of the best throws, I think, for Lamar in the game. Had a couple of really good ones too. I mean, I talked about yesterday the contorted body throw where he was in the air, twisting his body, threw it to Odell. Odell dropped it, so it would be more of a highlight if he had caught it. But then you have the one Isaiah Likely play where again, gets out of the sack from DeJuan Smoot, just kind of turns and it seems like he's going down, escapes, and then just chucks it up there. Again, wasn't a safe throw. Not going to call it a safe throw, but it worked out for him. And obviously one of the highlights of his career that play was. But you see, rushers come and Lamar, he finds time for himself. He rolls out and look, he can take off if he has to. The great part about it for Lamar is that I think with the receivers getting open the way that they are for the most part. Now, there have been some struggles where I think the offensive line has struggled to the point where Jackson can't get the ball off to his receivers when he needs to, and they're open. And then when they are not open, the offensive line blocks really well. And that's when we've seen so many plays this year where he's had 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seconds to throw the ball. He's just sitting there moving around, and it's usually they'll rush 4. Teams haven't blitzed Lamar as much as I thought they would this year. And part of it, I think, is the fact that Baltimore has combated that with the additions, with Odell and Zay Flowers and having Bateman there. Keaton Mitchell was a part of that, and obviously Mark too. But if you blitz Lamar, he's taking the short stuff now. Like he just takes what the defense is giving him. And I think that's an evolution in his game where a couple of seasons ago, we were identifying, hey, if Lamar wants to take that next step, you don't have to force these throws into places or hold the ball for super. Remember, he was holding the ball for a really long time. And even we can talk about it last year. He was doing it last year too. He's done that a lot less this season. And part of that is he'll chuck it down to Keaton Mitchell. He'll chuck it down to Gus Edwards. He'll find Nelson Aguilar for a 4-yard completion. That stuff matters. And that stuff is the difference between a sack and a 2nd and long or a 2nd and 10 on an incompletion, and to get it to 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5, and you can work your offense to get 5 yards on 2 plays. It makes such a difference. It makes the offense more efficient as a whole, and the offense has been more efficient under Todd Monk, and it's been the inconsistency, which I think has been frustrating. But I thought Lamar did a really good job in this game of being patient, letting things develop, and taking his time, and the Jaguars couldn't bring him down. I mentioned the fact it was 14 and 24, 171 through the air. Lamar averaged 8.1 yards per carry in this game, 12 carries for 97 yards for him. And half of it was because, again, Jacksonville couldn't get him down. It was incredible. Keaton Mitchell had 9 for 73. Lamar blocked on one of Keaton Mitchell's runs, by the way. I haven't seen that clip out on social media yet, but that was impressive. Lamar, he sprung him free. He gets tackled, I think, if Lamar doesn't block there. Gus Edwards, 16 for 58 and a score. Justice Hill, 5 for 23. I will say Gus has kind of slowed down as the season's progressed. He has not been the Gus that I think we've seen over the past couple of years. And, Gus has a lot of experience. He knows what to do. I'm not doubting Gus, but I think he has slowed down since the start of the season a little bit. This was the Isaiah Likely show receiving-wise, though. 5 for 70. Rashad Bateman, 3 for 39. He stepped up early, had a couple of really nice catches. Charlie Kohler almost scored a touchdown. Keaton had 2 for 15. But Odell Beckham and Zay Flowers, the story here, I think, to me, as I talked about yesterday, just 2 receptions for 21 yards for those two combined. So Zay got 2 targets, Odell got 3, and it wasn't, again, the Ravens didn't throw the ball 40 times. They threw it 24 compared to 42 rushes, but it seemed like when Zay was getting open, Lamar didn't have time to throw, and then when Zay wasn't open, Lamar had all the time in the world. So kind of how it worked sometimes, but the defense held the Jacksonville offense 7 points. I will say, and I said it yesterday, probably, more, it was a lot. I kind of ranted about it for a little bit, but the Jacksonville offense was just horrid. It was sloppy, terrible football. McManus misses 2 kicks. Trevor Lawrence just drops the ball, and Arthur Millette picks it up. They had the play. So I think it might have been Parker Washington. I can't remember, where literally 7 seconds to go or 10 seconds to go in the half. They don't have timeout, and Marcus Williams tackles them in bounds, and they don't get any points. Penalties, just such a sloppy game for them. It was honestly kind of embarrassing to watch for the Jaguars. And the Ravens defense, you can't do that against them. They took advantage. Kyle Hamilton balled out. Marcus Williams, I thought, played well. Marlon Humphrey had a bounce-back game. Brandon Stevens was incredible. And Justin Menabike gets that sack. So he's up to 12 on the season and 11 straight games with at least half a sack. So shout out to him. Baltimore did a great job against Jacksonville, as we talked about yesterday. Red zone defense and third down defense. 3 for 13 on third down for the Jaguars. 0 for 3 in the red zone for them. The Ravens took advantage of mistakes, and to be frank, Jacksonville didn't. I think that was one of the differences in the game, and they moved to 11-3 on the season and still have that number 1 seed in their grasp. Coming up in the final part of the show, though, we will talk more about Lamar Jackson. We'll dip into the MVP conversation a little bit more, though, so be sure to stay tuned. We still have a lot to get to on this episode of Locked On Ravens. First, this episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. And when you're hiring for your small business, you want to have as many top-tier candidates as possible to interview. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And I've had a ton of great experiences on LinkedIn, whether it's finding a job, connecting, networking. LinkedIn has been really great. Plus, it's really important to have quality candidates to interview. And it's really easy to do that and hire those over on LinkedIn Jobs, and it makes it really easy to find them as well. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which make it the best place to hire. Plus, hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses got qualified candidates within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. Post your job for free on LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL, LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. We're back, our final segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still talking with you here. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And whether an everyday or your first time in or you're somewhere in the middle, thank you for sticking with me here on Locked On Ravens. It's been a really cool journey. Started this in 2019. The Ravens obviously went 14-2 that season. They've had ups, they've had downs, but we're definitely in an upswing. This Ravens team is awesome. So be sure to subscribe here, YouTube, audio form for that 5-day-a-week Ravens content. It's exciting. So we have a lot of exciting things to talk about on the show. Tell a friend, tell a family member we are here for them on Locked On Ravens. And even on subtext, you can get exclusive text conversations and more insider info over there. Let's talk about Lamar Jackson a little bit here to round out this show. We dipped into the MVP conversation a little bit over the course of this show. We talked about it more extensively yesterday, but I do want to put out, well, at least I saw something that Skip Bayless said. I know Skip is very controversial and has some questionable takes more than most of the time, but he said something about Lamar and the Ravens in general. And I think it kind of speaks to the vibes that they have right now. Lamar just looks happy, and that's what he said. I'm paraphrasing here, but Lamar looks happy, and, you know, they rewarded him with the contract and everything like that. But see, things are just going well in Baltimore right now, and I think the team is just having fun. They all like each other. The players are playing for the coaches, and the coaches are coaching for the players. The team has the vibes, and that's part of winning a championship, right? Obviously, do you have to like everybody on a team? Does everybody have to like everybody to win a championship? No, right? Can't have that all the time. It's not a perfect world or anything. It's not like everybody's going to like everybody else. But locker room distractions are a big thing across the NFL, across professional sports. It seems like Baltimore has none of those right now. They're all solely focused on a singular goal. They're locked in. And that's kind of the mindset. It was 2021, I think it was, right? When they were talking, a lot of players, Marquise Brown was talking about it, Willie Snead was talking about it, Lamar, obviously, but Patrick Queen, a lot of guys are saying, you know what? We want a Super Bowl. We want to win the Super Bowl. We want to get a championship, bring the Super Bowl back to Baltimore. And they were very vocal about it that season. Obviously, it didn't work out that way, but the Ravens seem focused again on that goal, and they're not satisfied with wins. They want to get better. They're not Lamar, doesn't want the MVP trophy, wants a different MVP trophy, right? Wants a different trophy. So the Ravens right now, I think they're all on the same page. They all are focused and locked in and ready to work and ready to get better every week. I mean, the one that sticks out to me, and again, if you're with me every day, you might have heard me say this, but after the Lions game, that game was over in the middle of the second quarter. And guys were talking about, well, we're mad we didn't get the shutout. I didn't do this well. We need to get better here. That's the mindset you got to have if you want to win a Super Bowl, right? You have to not be satisfied with some success. You want to reach the top. You want to reach that ultimate level of success. And the Ravens, right now, they're getting there. I mean, the question is, how bad do they want it? How bad do they want it? I think the Ravens want it badly. Lamar wants it badly. I know that. I know John Harbaugh wants to win another one. Roquan Smith, right? He's been that fearless leader. He wants to win one. This Ravens team knows what they want. They know their goal. And when you talk about the MVP, I mean, look, who should win it? In my opinion, I think it's Lamar Jackson. I think he is the most valuable player in the league. Who is probably going to win it? Probably Brock Purdy, because he has the passing yards and the passing touchdowns. But I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters to Lamar if he wins the trophy or not. Again, to bring the basketball back into it with the Nuggets, I know if you're an everyday, you're sick of me talking about the Nuggets, but I have to do it because I want to provide examples to say, hey, this has happened, and maybe it'll happen to the Ravens. With Nikola Jokic in that MVP, he was on track to win the third straight. Obviously, Lamar won the one in 2019, but he didn't care about the MVP. He doesn't. Like, he's a guy that wants to win and cares about his teammates, wants to win for his teammates. Lamar is that same exact type of guy. You know, I know Jokic is a lot more, so when people think of Nikola Jokic, it's like, oh, he's reserved and, doesn't love basketball, which he does, by the way. Lamar loves football. And if Lamar passes off the MVP to Brock Purdy and, Brock wins it and everything, and then Lamar wins the Super Bowl, he makes that trade 100 times out of 100 times. I make that trade 100 times out of 100 times, and I'm sure you would probably make that trade 100 times out of 100 times too. So they have the goal and they have the players. The health's been pretty solid this year. I mean, again, knocking on wood, it stays relatively good. I'm sure they will probably have to deal with one or two more guys going down. And my fear with injuries now, and I talked about it last week, and of course, Keaton goes down, but this part of the year, if there's a serious injury, it has an impact not just for this season, but also for 2024. It will certainly have that for Keaton Mitchell with the ACL timelines that have gotten, used to be 12 to 15 months for recovery. Now it's kind of shrunk to 9 to 12, but it depends on the player. I mean, I'll talk about Jamal Murray. We're talking about the Nuggets all the time here. Jamal took about 2 full years to come back from the ACL and kind of look like himself again. Right, JK comes back, takes him a while to look like himself too before going down again. So it takes guys time. Cam Akers came back from an Achilles, like 4 months after it happened. Aaron Rodgers is doing crazy things over in New York with the Jets after his Achilles. But ACL injuries, they are serious. But to kind of bring my point home here, if a guy goes down with a serious injury and, it's a ligament thing or it would take, 9 to 12 months, if that's a September injury, the guy probably comes back, off season, maybe week 1. But if it's now, could cost him a lot more. So hopefully the Ravens can stay healthy. Health is a big part of winning in sports. The Ravens have lost a couple of key guys, but I'm hoping that they can stay healthy as this season winds down here. That's all I have for you here today, though, on Locked On Ravens. I appreciate you tuning in to the show. Coming up tomorrow, you know what it is. More Ravens content here on Locked On Ravens. Be sure to subscribe, follow along in audio form. Really, really appreciate it. Be sure to stay tuned. We'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.